Hello there, people, and welcome to the first episode of Doom Evil Unleashed. This is the 0.2 alpha, which was created 2 months into the development of Doom, so very early in 1993. Um, this basically expands on what kind of was done with its previous project, Wolfenstein 3D, and is designed to be a more complex game. Specifically, it's made to be a full-scale RPG in layman's terms. A design document was written up in sometime in late 1992, something called the Doom Bible, and it basically goes and it describes in detail how this game is supposed to play out, including a lot of different features and a lot of different ideas for the beginning of the game. It doesn't really flesh out as you get later into the game. There's supposed to be like 6 episodes, and really only the first episode is covered in the Doom Bible. So, yeah, it was totally written up by Tom Hall, and this is basically, what the game is supposed to be originally. As you can see, that's not exactly what happened. id Software ended up wanting to simplify things. They really started going, let's make it simpler and simpler, more streamlined, more of just a fast-paced shooter instead of being an overly complex RPG with more motivation than running to the end to press buttons. Tom Hall wanted a lot of complexity to the game, a lot of depth, a lot of different things going on, and id Software just wanted it to be very streamlined. So they ended up firing Tom Hall, and that's really what kind of happened with why the Doom Bible ended up not being a thing. Basically, everything in the Doom Bible wasn't used. And really, these early alphas are the only place we can therefore see what was like the original intent of Doom, what was kind of like if the Doom Bible had been followed. Because this was around the time when Tom Hall was part of the team, and therefore what his idea was. So this is a pretty good idea of what we could have expected had they continued development with the Doom Bible. So, that leaves the question of, what exactly is this? Well, this is Doom, Evil Unleashed. They end up getting rid of the subtitle later on. And as I said, it basically ended up being a dispute anyway with Tom Hall, but the funny thing and the irony in the whole situation is the whole thing reappeared with Quake, and basically had like half the team wanted to become a complex RPG, half the team wanted to become very simplified, and another streamlined shooter. And the big one was John Romero. John Romero was heavily against doing another FPS game just like Doom. So what ended up happening was John Romero ended up leaving. He didn't get fired right, during the development of Quake, but that was like the last project, and then he ended up leaving. And that's really kind of where basically a big part of the development team, at least Tom Hall and John Romero, ended up working together on Daikatana. So yeah, basically from these two projects throughout the 90s, whereby two very popular FPS games made by id Software, both of them were originally supposed to be very complex RPGs, and both of them turned out to be extremely simplified in the end. And it ended up with somebody getting fired, which resulted in the culmination of a video game later on, Daikatana. But that's all down the road. For the time being, what was important was Doom! Shooty shooty. This is Doom. And you can see already right off the bat, probably the most noticeable thing about it is the complex HUD. This HUD was a lot more complex than what you got in the final game, but the big problem with it is it's not functional yet. This is more of like a render demo than actual functional playable demo. At this point, as I said, only 2 months have been really done into it, and Really, this was more of a look at what we've done, look at how the game performs, how it generally will appear, more than how it actually plays. We don't really have many gameplay aspects to the game yet. So a lot of what you see is actually going to be more still images, things that are just kind of put into the game to be rendered or whatnot, but not actually made to do anything. So there's not really much gameplay going on. Also, another thing you may notice is the fact that there's an absolute lack of sound. That's because at this point they really hadn't settled on how they were going to implement sound into the game, what type of sounds they wanted. So therefore, we do not have any sounds whatsoever. It's going to be basically me just rambling the entire playthrough. Um, there is a splash screen. I'll definitely show that on the when I end up creating the video altogether. Um, Also, I was going to originally stream this, but for whatever reason, um, Twitch is acting up really crazily lately when it comes to night dev and CapChat. CapChat is not really loading any of the text that's supposed to be. It's not loading up for really anybody right now, and that's making it totally unusable, in my opinion, because that's a big part of why you stream. If you stream and cannot see the text on the screen, it could all still be done, but it's not exactly the most user friendly. And I spent hours trying to work on Twitch, trying to get like a nice alternative, and I just couldn't find anything that I'd be happy with, because the best alternative I could find, you couldn't really fade the text or get rid of it easily. You'd have to do it in a very obtrusive way that just wasn't the same as CapChat that would allow for a nice, clean thing. And the problem with that idea is the fact that I want you to be able to see the game. That's kind of a big part of it, is seeing the gameplay and seeing me and seeing what I'm talking about. So I didn't want to sacrifice it by ending up having a bunch of text thrown on the screen so you can't see any of the game, because then it just ends up being a bunch of clutter. So I decided for route number two. Basically, stop the stream, not bother with it until we get a thing going, and instead I'm just going to do it all using um, just the story route, the normal route of standard rendering. The good news with this is the fact that DOSBots is totally recordable with it. I'm currently using a certain SVN version of DOSBots that allows for advanced functionality. The differences aren't that big at all. Really, I have like Direct 3D included in this compared to like OpenGL or whatnot, but really, functionality does not change at all between the two versions, so it's not that big of a deal. One thing that is noticeable is the fact that on the standard vanilla version of DOSBots, I could not record with HQ3X. For whatever reason, it would not allow me to record HQ3X with DOSBots, so I would have to lower the quality manually. With this version, I'm able to use full quality. Anyway, I've been rambling for a bit. Let's actually get to the different elements. Because, like I said, honestly, this video is not going to be that much of a showcase of much of anything. It's going to be showcasing different parts of the game, but there's really not much to actually do. So it's more of me just talking. This is a very good talk video to get things done. There's really nothing to skip to. It's just kind of check out everything. So yeah, this is definitely kind of a dull format, I guess, but it's something to do for the time being. So we have all these different elements on the game. Specifically, looking from like the upper right hand corner, we have the map. The map does not represent the actual level at all. It's totally different. The map itself is rather weird. There's going to be like a square-like area where you can actually kind of cross across, and it doesn't look like there's anything on the map. There's like a weird open area on one of it. The map really is not fleshed out yet at all. Um, it'll definitely eventually become what you see with the auto map, but in this stage, it's more like a mini map, almost like what you would see later on in games. They kind of brought back something like this. But in this current form, it definitely is not very functional because it's just a still image. And I'm not exactly sure which is supposed to be the open area. I'm assuming the darker is where the open area is and the light blue is the walls. But it definitely, like I said, it doesn't even represent what it's supposed to be there. I don't know why there's like walls that are like a certain depth different. And definitely with wad tricks and whatnot when it comes to like how walls are rendered at infinite heights, maps are definitely not the best thing at this point. Honestly, like I've never been a fan of the auto map. Never been a fan of any of that. Like I said, really when it came to like 2D maps and 2D in general when it comes to like, 2.5D games, auto maps were never really a good thing. They functioned, they did what they did, but they definitely were a low point of the games. I was never a big fan of them, and honestly, I preferred, not even using them and just treating it more like Quake or something like that, where no auto map exists. Um, but generally, I end up actually using it with source ports or whatnot, just that way I can kind of get around because the games tend to be maze-like, but it definitely isn't the best map around. Anyway, on the upper left-hand side, we have information about our weapon. Specifically, we're carrying a shotgun right now. It's the only weapon in the game. And if you were to actually look at the source files for this and whatnot, you could actually see sprites for all the different weapons besides the shotgun. But in game, the only weapon we have is the shotgun because we can't pick up anything. There's nothing to pick up, and therefore this is the only weapon to use. And it tells us all these different stats about the gun, which suggests that it was originally supposed to be more of an RPG-based element here. You can see damage of 30, that's pretty simple. That must be like a base damage of how much hit points it takes or something like that. RPS is probably the time, I would say. I would say DPS is damage per second, so RPS is maybe like rounds per second or per, you know, so many tenths of a second or something, so like 20.20 seconds or so. So it'd be like a 20th of 1 second. Though I'm not sure, because if I was to fire this gun, that definitely is not 20 seconds. But that's really all I can think PS. PS is for seconds usually, so the problem is that the Doom Bible does not describe any of this, so there's not really much help from that avenue. It'd be nice if really it just described everything here, especially since this was kind of what was created. You'd think it would be representative of some of it, but some areas are just not clarified on that for whatever reason. Anyway, next we have mats, which is 99. I'm assuming that's talking about the maximum number of ammo. So we currently have 15 ammo, and it could go up to a maximum of 99. Sounds pretty straightforward. Kind of similar to what we end up getting in the game in the end, because we end up having maximum amounts, but definitely a lot more than I think we end up getting in the maximum, and it's not put with the number, it's separate. Also, we have RNG, which I'm assuming means range. So that's like the distance you'd be able to shoot at and hit something. As you see, when you shoot, it lights up. So there's already lighting effects with the gun at this point, whereby what you shoot at will light up. And if you also notice when I shoot, it does not change the number, the amount of ammo we have. That's because everything at this point is just a picture, as I said, so you cannot run out of ammo at this point. And the number counter will not go down or anything. So I can just shoot over and over, and nothing will happen. So the shotgun itself is relatively similar to the one we got back in regular Doom. It has a weird scopy thing at the end, like a big open barrel circle, but otherwise it looks relatively similar. When we shoot back, you can see Doom Guy has like a black sleeve instead of his normal hand. for whatever reason. Guess he was wearing black clothing that day. Um, Instead of just having bare, exposed hands. Doom Guy got a lot more buff and just wanted to go toe to toe with enemies in the end. And then also, there's like a wooden siding on this one. I mean, I can imagine there was something in the final game, but the wood seems more distinguished in this version, for whatever reason. It definitely was a different sprite than what we saw in the final game. Alright, so with all that in mind, we also have stuff down below, all different stuff. So, on the right hand side, the lower right, we have a list of weapons. Specifically, should I say the lower middle, because there is lower panels that we'll get to, but the weapons on the right hand side is a list of all the different weapons that are in the game and how much ammo we have for them currently. There's also a knife, but the knife is a melee-based attachment for the pistol, so it's treated basically the same as the pistol. And I'm assuming it would work kind of like the knife back in Wolf 3D, if I really had to judge how it would be. The pistol is a pistol, shotgun is a shotgun. We had a machine gun instead of a chain gun, but I'm assuming functionality it's pretty much the same. It'd probably be like Wolfenstein's machine gun. Then we get a little bit different. We have the missile launcher instead of the rocket launcher, though beyond the name, it's pretty much the same idea. Then we have a claw. I forget if that's its full name or not. I think it's like Dark Claw or something. But the idea of it basically is that it drains enemy health and allows you to regenerate it. So it's basically a way of like being able to restore health from your opponents just by killing them or something. It was seen as a bit redundant, apparently, according to what I've read, so it wasn't included for whatever reason. Honestly, it sounds like a pretty neat functionality in comparison to some of the other weapons. And we definitely still had two melee weapons in the end, so I'm not really sure why that was so-called redundant. Anyway, the next weapon, another one that we also have zero ammo for, I'm not sure if there would be ammo for this weapon or if it would just be infinite. Is the pro projectile or something? I believe it's projectile or something like that. It's the projectile, something like that. Where basically the idea of it, I'm better at what it is than what its actual name is because we only get a short little name. What the weapon does is it basically you shoot it at an enemy and it tells you stats. It basically is just like how we see the shotgun stats or whatnot. We'd have a lot more complicated stats for monsters, where you'd shoot this gun at an enemy, and we'd be able to see exactly what the stats of said enemy were. So probably like level, what their damage would do, what their range is, all that. Probably same stuff as what we get for like our gun, but for like an enemy. Maybe that's even where it would have been kind of shown. I'm not really sure. We never really got like this is like the most complex of the HUDs, but isn't functional, so we don't really get many details as how the HUD would have actually worked. But yeah, like I said, it has zero ammo, so I'm not sure if it was actually intended to just be like an infinite fire gun whenever you used it, or if it'd be like a limited use thing where you had to be intelligent when you actually tried to figure out what level an enemy was. Okay, the next weapon is the spray rifle. The spray rifle is essentially a shotgun. It sounds like basically the shotgun from the final game, but with a wider spread. It basically was your wide distance killer, so it'd shoot like wide distance, so it'd be good for like an army of weak mooks for just shooting down like a room filled with them. Honestly, if you want to talk about redundant, that is probably the most redundant gun. It really, I couldn't see much use for it. With a machine gun and a shotgun, you're basically covered on both grounds. So really, that gun just kind of feels like it's kind of there and not that useful in general. unless it was just as powerful as a shotgun, in which case, why are you using either or? Besides it's extra ammo or something. But yeah, it's kind of redundant. And then we have the BFG. This was the 2704, I believe. I can't pull up websites right now or whatnot, so I'm doing all this based on memory. And the BFG was pretty much the same as the final version, as far as I know. Besides the weird difference in numberation, and I think it actually evolved a few times as we went through the different things to become the BFG 9000 that we saw in the final version. But yeah, it definitely weird how the BFG kept changing its numbering. So then we also have an Unmaker, which the Unmaker is basically made from like bones. And it's supposed to be like an artifact from like hell or something that can be used to destroy enemies in a devastating way or something like that. It's supposed to be like an extremely deadly weapon. I don't really know too much about it actually. There's not many details on it because it was supposed to be more of like a commercial based weapon. The others are supposed to be stuff you would be able to find in the base and therefore in the first chapter. But the Unmaker was something after you went to hell and therefore was not really that detailed in the Doom Bible. So yeah, that's definitely something that's a little bit more mysterious to me. On the left-hand side, we have basically our health values. We have full health right about now. Our armor's about halfway. And we also have an S value, which is a bit different than, the final game. The other two make sense. The S is the weird one. If I had to say what S was, I'd say stamina. How much, you are tired or whatnot. So probably for like a sprint feature, which would make use of that run that's in the final game where you can run and then basically walk and make an actual importance on it. Based on how certain games go with like stamina and whatnot, I can imagine that was the idea. There's really not too much else I could think that would be wrong there that would still be found in that value spot. Anyway, we also have the bottom area, which is devoted to more gameplay based features that are not that important to the actual final version of the game, but it's like little extra stuff. Okay, on the left we have our story. Story based concepts, which in Doom's story is not important at all, really. But at the time, it was supposed to be a complex RPG with a lot more involvement on said story. So Chen saying, "Oh, I found the cool stuff." That was supposed to be like the Doom Bible or whatnot, as you basically talked with your teammates and whatnot. And Chen was supposed to be one of the teammates, and there was supposed to be different classes of characters and a lot more to it. And on the right is our inventory. Basically, all different items we would use as basically keys and whatnot. It's like what's supposed to be the captain's hand and probably the heart of Lothar. Sandwich might be a healing item, but might also be a key. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, it's supposed to be all different RPG based items that you could use in different situations. So it's yet another area that was completely removed in the final version. So, with all that in mind, that's the entire HUD, and we can finally explore this game after a long talk. The HUD is so complex that I had to go over everything now. It's a lot more complex than like later versions. So a lot had to be pointed out. Like I said, the saddest thing is the fact that none of it actually functions. Bear with me, people, about that. That is another thing I want to show off. That's basically the instability of this engine. The Doom 0.2 version was very unstable. It tends to crash a lot. It tends to crash more when you're actually doing things, moving around and whatnot. When I was standing still, if you noticed, nothing was happening. But as I started moving around and shooting, it crashed the game. So it tends to be better if you just move around gently, move slightly or whatnot, than doing too much, because otherwise you're bound to crash the game. So this part will just be connected right to that last part with like probably a little fade effect or something to blend the two together, and we'll be fine. Anyway, you've probably been seeing this guy standing here the entire time. This is our first Doom enemy, which we can completely walk through and doesn't really exist in the world. We can shoot at him, does nothing, doesn't kill him. It's basically just an animated sprite at this point that can move back and forth, doesn't turn to see the player, and instead we can basically just see him stand from different directions. See him shake his booty and dance in place. So yeah, I've been informed actually that this game actually has more animations than the final one in terms of how the enemy moves. So it's like here the enemy actually takes like slow steps. And if you notice, it slides back and forth with moving its knees. In the final version, it's basically a 2-4. It moves back, forth, back, forth. So there's actually more frames per the sprite movements in this version compared to later on. Also, the imp at this point, which is what this enemy is, of course, which in the Doom Bible would be referred to as the Demon Trooper, because the imp itself was supposed to be a flying red dude with wings. Kind of basically akin to what we saw in Heretic. That'd be a very good imp, was the gargoyles in Heretic. But yeah, this guy was the Demon Trooper, and he basically works the same way I assume as the imp was supposed to, but the thing about him is, well, he can't do anything, first of all, and the fact that his eyes are a bit different coloration. They're orange in this version instead of the red that we're used to. So, it definitely, I've heard opinions that he ends up looking a little less evil in this version, and more like an alien or something than an actual demon. But you can see definitely like there's a little coloration there that you can see like the inner of his eyes that are like a darker color than the rest of it. That's pretty interesting. So back here in this little niche area, we have our second enemy, the Baron of Hell. Bloody DOS bots. Anyway, as I was trying to show off, the next area to go was over here to the Baron of Hell with his green powered gauntlets, as I was trying to show off. Not sure how much of that I got, so I just wanted to say that. The Baron of Hell is pretty much apparently looking like he does in his final version. This is probably the only enemy in the Doom 0.2 version that has not really changed at all in appearance from the final version. This guy looks pretty much how we ended up seeing him in the final one. And I believe he was even called the Baron of Hell here. I don't remember another name for him. There was, I do not recall that at all. I don't even recall if there was a Baron of Hell in the Doom Bible. I just remember them saying that there was supposed to be like some tough boss at the end of the first episode or something. So they might have been planning for this guy to be in there or something for that. I'm not really sure at this point what they were planning for this guy. But the Baron of Hell did exist at this point, so it was a part of the canon, even if the Doom Bible didn't originally say it. So let's wander this way. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Let's look around and see our new friend, the Demon, with his sharper teeth, like almost more monkey-like gorilla look, and like different colored eyes. It looks, the Demon's probably the most changed of the enemies in this version. And the Demon, at this point, also known as the Pinky in the final version, is not exactly just the demon here. It's not just a demon. We got that simple name in the final one, but here it was known as the Demon Sergeant, basically the commanders of the imps. Which really kind of sounds pretty sad because the demon sergeants would be pretty terrible at fighting you, therefore, because as you know from the final game, the pinkies are just melee based opponents that charge at you and are pretty weak. They're a little bit powerful, but not that big of a deal at all. So if this was a sergeant, yeah, I'm not exactly sure that would work. So you can definitely tell there's probably some change in ranking somewhere. Anyway, that's really most of the map. You know, you come over here, there's the demon, well, demon trooper. Over here's the demon sergeant. Over here's another Baron of Hell. There's two Baron of Hells in this level for whatever reason. I guess the Bruiser brothers were here at the time. That was, I guess, the idea to keep the Bruiser brothers together and in this random world. But yeah, that really is the entirety of this level. But we also have a bunch of debug stuff at this time. Okay, we can change the walls, the ceiling, the floor, basically everything. So we press these buttons, the 3 and 4 keys, and it'll change the colorations of the wall. So we have like a pink texture, and it'll get like different segments. Get smaller and smaller, smaller and smaller. And it does the same thing for red, the same thing for green. And also, if you notice, as you're going left with on the 3, it's actually getting smaller. So like this one's bigger, this one's bigger, and it basically gets smaller and smaller. So like this is the smallest height. Like that's the most claustrophobic here. And if you were to go here, it's going up. Like this is a bit bigger. Then we have this one, which is just a gray. A lot of these, as you can see, are more placeholders than actual textures at this point. Really, like the only one that's a real texture is this for a wall, which looks like something that could be in the final game. Then we have like something like this that's a nice dark green or something, another interesting texture. And then we have this, which just basically is, you know, showing some of the rivalry at this time between, with Tom Hall and John Carmack. John Carmack was the programmer and basically one of the heads of id Software. And as you can see, there was some problems, with them. As you can see by that. Pretty infamous. Then we have bigger white walls and this one, which is definitely a texture we do not recognize in the final game. This thing? Oh, get out of my way, Baron of Hell. White segments. They get bigger. And we have this random brown one that I don't recognize from anywhere. And that's the final wall texture. Anyway, we also have ceiling textures, but the ceiling textures and the floor textures are exactly the same. I think it's easier to see floor textures and ceiling textures. So I'm just going to skip right from the 3-4 keys to the 7 and 8 keys, which do the floors. So this is the current floor texture. And this is actually the far left one, so I can't go 7 anymore. I have to go with 8. So here's like a nice rock texture, kind of like what we see on the ceiling. And here it is kind of similar, but with like a blockiness. And here's like a nice industrial look. More of like a dirt look. It's like a nice swampy look. Bot says. And one that's a bit more interesting. Tom is king. To basically go with the other one. Where is that texture? There. You can definitely tell there was some rivalry going on here. Tom Hall definitely had some fun with this version, didn't he? And that's actually the furthest texture on this side, so yeah. Let's actually change that here. Yeah, look at that. Play the entire level with, with Tom Hall being praised. And now, for the final buttons, we have the 9 and 0 keys, which is totally controlling the lights. So like as I do this, it makes it brighter. And it's really a press and hold thing, or you can tap it and it'll kind of be very, very sensitive. It's like you could go here and it's complete blackness. Gotta love that disconnect thing. But as I was trying to show off, as you shut off like the lights, it becomes more of like a survival horror thing. As you get close to the enemy, you kind of see them. Imagine that. Like, imagine like seeing an imp or something come out of the darkness like that. And here you have like pitch brightness, which is good for rendering. But yeah, this would probably be more like how Doom would look. Albeit with some cooler textures on the walls. Like that. Like, imagine it looking like something like this. And then we change the walls. Oh yeah, this is definitely what, is the spirit of Doom at the time. This is the Doom Bible in a nutshell. Da 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 da. And you can shoot things and wander around aimlessly and kill things in this very dark base setting. But yeah, not really much we can actually do at this time. As I said, basically everything is pretty much just a pretty picture. I mean, the final game is just a pretty picture with a bunch of things that you can shoot and interact with. But the fact is, the matter, there's nothing we can actually really do at this point. Most of the features in this version are debug settings to basically just change things that can be shown. And beyond that, it's just more or less let's show you the basic concept, but not really gameplay functionality. That really wasn't the focus of this one, and therefore we don't really get to see it until the next alpha. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, people. This has definitely been interesting return to history as we get to see just how infamous the battle was between Tom and Jules at this time, as Tom Hall definitely seemed to hate John Carmack. And thank you, people, for bearing with me as we have had constant instabilities between various pieces of software, including DOSBox itself, because of Doom 0.2 being totally unstable on it. But anyway, it functioned, it worked, and we have a fully complete version. Anyway, I shall see you all next time.